such a hard episode to watch, you know. I just can't watch people be not fun. Oh, hey! Hi! It's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 13, Episode 12. And before we get started, I just need to thank my tipperdoos. Mahalia Daniel and her daughter Sass sent some love from Alabama. Hey, ladies! Tony Dillon from Chicago dropped by to say my wig game is fierce. Thanks for noticing, Tony. Bjorn Clausen sent some love from Denmark and wants to know when they can get their hands on some official Jorge Drink Me glasses. Me too, Bjorn. Seriously, that would be awesome. Especially since I need some glasses. I only have the one. Jorge, get on it. Seriously. Jean-Sebastien Tremblay wanted to thank me for my amazing and entertaining reviews. Thank you for noticing, Jean-Sebastien. And John Dwyer, my East Coast flirt, sent some love. I hope you're well, John. Seriously. And Labuda dropped by. Thanks, Ann. You have a great day too, seriously. Thanks also to legendary Redbubble model Jennifer, who looks forward to my reviews every week. Jay Bowen says he can't wait for more videos. More on the way, Jay. And Patreon supporter Susan Nicolai popped by to thank me for all the humor. You're welcome, Susan. Also, thank you for those fabulous gifts that you sent from my Amazon wish list. You're a doll, I'm so serious. Now, if you want to be a tipperdoo and support me in the channel, the links are all down below. Also, if this isn't your first visit to the Fingerdoo review and you haven't subscribed yet, why don't you hit that subscribe button? Seriously. Clearly, our relationship is running deeper than just a casual hello. Now, Jorge, drink me. Ooh, look at this. Is this a sophisticated lady? Oh, a sophisticated dame, because we're using Moonshine Creek's Canadiana, which is a distilled liquor made from organic maple syrup. So Canadian. It's so sophisticated. Seriously. So we started this episode off by saying goodbye to Tina Burner. I'm glad that Utica thought she was going home when she found out she was lip-syncing against Tina, because I did too. Not that I'm sorry she didn't, I was just worried. What surprised me was Utica saying that she felt Tina deserved to stay more than she did. That's nonsense. All of these queens deserve to be there, but none of them deserves to stay. That's why they have judges, whether we agree with them or not. If these queens want to stay, they have to earn it. Seriously. And can I just say, it's all well and good for Utica to say Tina deserves to be there more than her, but I would be more impressed if she had said that on the runway in front of RuPaul. Put up or shut up, Utica. Something else that bothered me was Uticas Tears. It sounds like a movie. In a world where emotions run deep. No offense to Utica, because I thought she did a great job, but there's a needy quality to her that doesn't come off as humility for me. It comes off as a backhanded way to fish for compliments. Isn't the fact that she won the lip sync compliment enough? From the eye rolling that was going on, it looked like a couple of the queens agreed with me. Mind you, it was mostly Tina's Mean Girls and Simone, but still. I love these queens who win a couple of lip syncs and suddenly think they're a lip sync assassin. Calm down. You should be trying to make sure it doesn't happen a third time is all I'm saying. Have we learned nothing from Tia Coffee? Seriously. Of course, the two winners, Simone and Rosé, had to be congratulated. And of course, Candy had to make it all about her. She wants to win so badly that I'm afraid someone's going to get hurt. Personally, I think Candy needs to take a long, hard look at herself and that runway nonsense to fully understand why that didn't happen. The next day in the workroom, Simone was still all up in her feels over her fourth win this season when, without further ado, RuPaul's video message warned the queens that nice girls finish last. Hear that, Olivia Lux? RuPaul is trying to tell you something. Seriously. This week's mini challenge was all about Anastasia Beverly Hills' Norvina palette, created and named after Anastasia's daughter and CEO of Anastasia Beverly Hills Cosmetics, Claudia Soar, aka Norvina. The queens would be doing a live makeup tutorial in pairs. One queen would be the face and doing all the talking, while the other would be the hands creating the look. And the team with the funniest face would win. Ru left the pairing up to the queens, and without much fuss or hurt feelings, those pairs were Rosé and Candy, Olivia and Simone, and Utica and Gottmik. For the most part, this challenge made me worry that someone was going to lose an eye, what with whoever was the hands not being able to see anything they were doing. But no one got hurt physically. The same can't be said for their images. Rosé and Candy seemed to work well together. Rosé understood that the best way to do this challenge was just to narrate whatever Candy's hands were trying to do, and she was pretty funny doing it. Plus, her selfie pic was fun. Simone and Olivia did all right, but they came the closest to suffering bodily harm, if you ask me. Okay, mostly Simone, but something tells me if Olivia had stuck a brush in Simone's blinker, Simone was going to shove her foot up Olivia's winker. You heard me. Unfortunately, it didn't look like Olivia got much product on Simone's face, which hurt their selfie. The funniest thing about Gottmik and Utica was Utica's arms. They were so long and wavy, it made Gottmik look like one of those wavy arm blow-up things at a car sale. The second funniest thing was Gottmik herself. Her quick wit and snappy opinions were a hoot, but sadly, the selfie they took wasn't as great as Rosé and Candy, so it was no surprise to me that Rosé and Candy were the mini challenge winners. And then it was on to this week's maxi challenge, the Nice Girls Roast. Barf. And what was worse, they would be roasting drag queen Miss Congeniality winners Heidi in Closet, Valentina, and Nina West. Double barf. This challenge had a couple of queens worried, including me. But the most shook seemed to be Gottmik, and I understand how she feels. I'm not good at roasts. I'm not saying I can't be shady off the cuff, but to be mean on purpose is sometimes very difficult for me. I said sometimes. Because Rosé and Candy won the mini challenge, they would be deciding the running order of the show. You know, somewhere near Dundee, Scotland, Ellie Diamond is feeling a disturbance in the force. Right away, the queens got down to writing. While they did, Rosé and Candy got down to creating the lineup. I have to say, I'm with Candy. When I'm doing new material or a show with a theme that I've written specific material for, I like to go first. That way, if anyone else has similar material, they're the ones that have to change it up. Of course, that plan can go to hell if anyone is funnier than you. Not that that's happened to me often. Shut up, Jorge! Rosé seemed to have the same idea, but Candy wouldn't budge, so Rosé had to settle for closing the show, something that she seemed very nervous to do, but as a self-professed comedy queen, closing a show shouldn't be too hard to do. So when they told the other queens that the lineup was Candy, Simone, Utica, Gottmik, Olivia, and Rosé, Simone was surprised that Rosé and Candy put themselves in what she thought were the hardest positions. Obviously, she was worried that someone was going to put her in one of those spots. Bless. I don't know what happened with Utica over the last few episodes because she seemed to be getting in touch with her inner mean girl, telling Olivia to her face that she'll do very well and then reading her to filth in the confessional. Weren't the other queens reading her just the other day for doing the same thing? I'm starting to be disappointed by Utica. Seriously. Rosé seemed to be channeling her inner Ben de la Creme by acting out and reacting to her own set. And we all know how well that went for Dayla. In fact, the whole room seemed to be trying to flex their comedy muscles by reading each other and clapping back, which unfortunately just seemed to prove that some of these queens should be worried. Thank God the queens got some comedy coaching from Lonnie Love, a working stand-up comic, and for some reason, Michelle Visage. Up first to show off their jokes was Candy Muse. Right off the bat, Candy dropped the C word, much to Lonnie Love's chagrin. Well, at least she got it out of the way. Gottmik admitted to Lonnie and Michelle that she was worried by this challenge, and she wasn't lying. But to be honest, she had some good material. She just needed to deliver it with more conviction. Olivia was next, and in the nicest way possible, she admitted being worried about being too polite. I would have been more concerned about not being funny. I'm so serious. Rosé was next, and much to my surprise, she killed it. Seriously, this was the first time this whole season that I've seen a sense of humor from her. Just me? Simone was next, and Michelle hit it on the head right away. Simone was overthinking it. Everything she said needed explaining, and it still wasn't funny. Utica was next, and God bless. For someone who has an alleged gentle disposition, she went full ham. On Lonnie and Michelle, the more they didn't laugh at her material, the more she seemed to attack them on a personal level, saying it looks like Michelle has had children and suggesting that Lonnie Love should be able to speak whale. It's like she forgot that they'd be judging her later. I just want to take a moment to point out this is what trying to be funny without a sense of humor looks like. Seriously. Back in the workroom, Utica's veil of delusion seemed to be getting thicker. She obviously was trying to brag to the other queens about how well she did, but they weren't buying it. Gottmik could see the writing on Utica's wall, and that wall was starting to crumble, while Candy thought this was Utica's commercial all over again. And who wants to sit through that a second time, seriously? And then it was elimination day, and for all the smiles and giggles, there was still an undercurrent of worry that reared its ugly head in reads and insults between the queens. Candy predicted Simone was going to have a hard time. Simone clapped back that Candy would continue her downward trend of looking like a big old man no matter what she put on. Candy also gave Olivia a hard time about her lace game where her wigs are concerned. Olivia didn't care. She still won that week, with or without that foot of lace across her forehead. Seriously. Regardless, Olivia told the room that even though she was terrified of doing the roast, she felt that she found her rhythm, which I was happy to hear. Now all she needs to do is find her funny. Utica was another one who felt she was going to do well, but no matter how much she said it, no one was buying it. Certainly not Rosé. Me either, if I'm honest. Too bad the challenge wasn't asking questions on behalf of the production, because Simone would have won that with her "has anyone had a moment when comedy has gotten them through a hard time?" question. To get the ball rolling, Simone said that performing and making people laugh and forget their day-to-day helps her lighten her self-imposed load, which I found surprising because self-imposed load was my drag queen name in high school. Candy, like many of us, uses comedy to cope with the hurtful things in life, which brought up a great point with Olivia that queer folk, especially queer folk of color, use humor to get through the harsh reality of the outside world. Preach, Miss Olivia! And then it was time for the runway. Ru surprised the hell out of me by wearing a leotard down the runway. Not that she looked bad. In fact, I thought she looked fantastic. But I don't think she's ever worn a leotard on the runway. Secretly, I think it's because she's afraid of Michelle reading her. Speaking of, Michelle looked fabulous in her coiffed deliciousness, which I hear was her drag queen name in high school. Joining Michelle was the incredibly shrinking Ross Matthews, who looked fabulous in his floral blazer, and Lonnie Love was giving me life in her sequenced top. You heard me. So, instead of an actual runway, the queens decked themselves out for the nice girls' roast. Well, some more than others. And to start the roast off, the guests of honor were brought out on stage so they wouldn't miss a word. Nina West looked, well, like a Pride Day yogurt cup. Just me? Valentina's outfit was stunning, but I hated her eyebrows. No offense, but I thought those thin brows threw her whole face out of balance, especially after it took me so long to get used to those cartoon brows she used to draw on. Seriously. Last but not least was Heidi in Closet. I just loved her outfit, although I wish the hat hadn't looked so rigid on her head. But still, Mama looked good. Up first was Candy Muse, and right away I gave her outfit a Fingerdoo. She said she was going to look like a woman, and she didn't lie. That dress and corset combo was gorgeous. Where'd she get that corset? Find out. When you get those glasses, find out about that corset. Seriously. Although I will say this, I thought her hair was a little understated. If she'd had more height or more volume in it, it would have helped to feminize those shoulders. I'm just saying. As for her set, Candy killed it. I knew she was going to be entertaining, but between her fast talking and the way she mumbles, I didn't expect her to be funny as well. I was prepared to spend a lot of my time listening to her and wondering what it was that she had just said. That was not the case. She burned everyone beautifully, and as harsh as she got, she was never mean. I was really impressed. Here's the Candy Muse, seriously. It was that strong start to the roast that helped to amplify the failure of Miss Simone. This had to be the worst performance of anyone in a comedy or roast competition on RuPaul's Drag Race ever. And because it was Simone, it was even harder to watch. None of her jokes landed. Thank God she looked good. Good enough for a Fingerdoo at any rate. But P.U. And then, I didn't think it would be possible. We went from bad to worse with Utica. At least she had that one joke off the top about her balls that didn't bomb. But to be honest, I just think we were desperate to laugh at anything at that point. Utica wasn't just mean. She was harsh and vivid. She did so badly that when Utica went after Lonnie Love's comedy career, Lonnie heckled her by telling her that she was the one who was bombing. And you know, if that was all she did, I could have lived with it. But then Utica went for RuPaul by asking her to stand up, when the whole world knows once she's behind that judges panel, she removes that corset and puts on sweatpants. To be honest, I'm sorry Ru didn't stand up, because we all know Utica would not have expected that. The best thing about Utica's set? It ended. Thank God Gottmik was next. For someone who was worried about doing a roast, she nailed it hard. And she did it in that gorgeous Fingerdoo of a dress. She had me when she compared Utica to a urinary tract infection, and it just went uphill from there. She burned everyone equally, but instead of Utica, Gottmik did it with humor. The worst thing about Gottmik's performance? Olivia followed her. Not that Olivia did the worst. Who could with Utica in the lineup? But clearly, Olivia uses her cuteness as a crutch. The more she bombed, the more baby-like her voice became. Her whole act came off as a mea culpa for not being funnier. Not to say she wasn't funny, but her jokes would have gone over better if she just dropped them like a boss instead of whatever the hell that was she was doing. Hell, even Valentina went after Olivia when she came after her for her eyebrows. But in Olivia's defense, someone had to. At least her outfit was cute. Fingerdoo. Last but not least was Rosé in one of the worst runway outfits ever for me. It was so busy with all that fabric and fringe that I couldn't tell where she started and the 80s ended. So I gave it a finger don't. Thank God she was funny. She wasn't the funniest, but following Olivia made it feel like she was. All the miscongenialities got some mic time too, but only 2 of them were funny, and the other one was Valentina. And while we're talking about the miscongenialities, can I just say how adorable Heidi was during this whole thing? Her reactions to everyone and everything was just lovely, and more than made up for there not being an audience for those queens to perform to, I'm just saying. I also want to congratulate all the queens, regardless of how they did. Let's all remember that they performed in front of an audience of 4 that included RuPaul and Michelle Visage. Here's to everyone, seriously. And then it was time for the judges' critiques. Everyone loved Candy. All the judges praised her for setting a very high bar as the first performer. Well done. Everyone agreed that Simone looked fantastic, but Ross said it best when he pointed out how funny she'd been in other challenges, which made her awkward performance all that much harder to watch. Utica was next, and it felt like all the judges were struggling to find something positive to say, which is more than Utica did. Ru pointed out that Utica's go-to when she's failing is to get a little mean. Ross made a good point. Utica didn't have jokes. She had observations. Personally, I thought they came off more like opinions, and who doesn't already have one of those? Seriously. In her own defense, Utica tried to explain she's still learning what is funny, because clearly she already knows what isn't. Gottmik had clearly impressed the judges. Lonnie Love pointed out that of all the queens she and Michelle coached, Gottmik was the only one who seemed to listen to what they said and apply it to her set. All the judges loved her performance, and RuPaul compared her delivery to Phyllis Diller. And if you don't know who that is, we can't be friends. So Google her so we can be, seriously. Well done to Gottmik. Olivia was next, and even though Ross said some of her jokes landed, Ru pointed out that even her cutesy walk came off as an apology. Olivia tried to defend herself by saying she wanted to up the sweetness factor to offset the roast, which would have been fine if that's what had happened, but it didn't. I loved Ru asking if she felt she had fulfilled the challenge, which is always code for, you know you sucked, right? I'm just sorry that Olivia said she thought she did fulfill the challenge, which is always code for, I'm an idiot. Last but not least was Rosé. Michelle thought she did a great job, especially since she was the only one to not rely on cue cards. Lonnie loved Rosé as well, but she felt she had done better during the rehearsal. All I kept thinking was, the 80s called. They want none of that back. Just keep it. Back in the Untucked Lounge, the queens complimented Rosé and Candy for creating a good lineup no matter how the queens did. Candy asked who thought they would be in the bottom. Obviously, Simone and Utica felt they were, but then Utica went on this long drawn-out word vomit about how well she did with her ad-libs and how much fun she had, which, well, didn't convince anybody. Simone was beyond consolable about how bad she did, but Candy went out of her way to tell her that she's too hard on herself. Even Gottmik agreed that Simone made a great effort for someone who is beyond scared to do this challenge. I'm not sure why Olivia asked the queens what they thought about her set, except that she always asks the other queens what they thought. Why does she care? Maybe she was tired of talking about other people, or maybe she was starting to realize she didn't do as well as she thought. I don't know. We're not close. Rosé's only critique was that Olivia had said she'd sent her home episode 1 when, in fact, she was just in the next room. But the truth of the matter is she lost a lip sync to Olivia, and clearly she'll be walking with that truth long after the season is done. But she clearly agreed with Ru about Olivia's character coming off as apologetic. Oh, well, we can all get some sleep now. Simone admitted that Olivia had done better than she thought she would, but her whole act was just one note. Olivia appeared to be listening to what the other queens had to say, but it did nothing to change what she thought of her set. She was just proud to make RuPaul laugh. Or whatever it was that RuPaul was doing with her voice. Sounded more like an old cat being beaten by a squeaky bed frame. Seriously. Yeah, yeah, ah, meow. Is that not what she did? Rosé went off on her own tangent about how she wasn't worried about the challenge, but she wished she could have taken everything that was said in the coaching session and apply it to her set. Sounds to me like she's mad that Gottmik and Candy stole her thunder and was going to miss out on a second win. Just saying. God bless Candy. Rosé used the phrase turning a new leaf, and I am so impressed that Candy asked what it meant. This is how we learn. If you don't know, ask. I love how she said, if you turn over a leaf, it's still the same leaf. Of course, that phrase has nothing to do with leaves on a tree. A leaf is a two-sided page on a book. One side is a page, the other side is a page, both sides, a leaf. When you turn a page, you turn over a new leaf. In fact, that's what the Canadian hockey team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, name was originally, the Toronto Leafs. Their logo was an open book because they were voracious readers, but the other teams picked on them for being nerds, so they changed it to Maple Leafs. One thing that I was impressed with was how well both Candy and Gottmik did in the roast, despite how they felt going into it. The queens agreed they both had a good chance to win it, and that seemed to mean as much to them as if they had. Although, truth be told, Candy wanted this win bad. I'm still not sure why. Maybe it was damage control. Maybe it was a subtle apology, but Utica had one more moment where she talked about how she's still trying to figure herself and her place in the world of drag out. I get it. Some people fit in and some people don't. Let me tell you something. I'm 100 years old and I'm still trying to figure it out. It doesn't get easier. You just get used to it. Utica needs to give herself a break and allow herself to just be in the room. Seriously. Speaking of being in the room, the three Miss Congenialities dropped by for a visit. Right away, Heidi asked them who they thought was going home tonight, which everyone agreed was not very congenial at all. The queens were gagged, but you know they all had opinions. The general consensus was that Simone and Utica were in the bottom two, with Olivia as a close alternate. Valentina wanted to know who took the longest to get ready and who they thought was the fan favorite. Of course she did. Naturally, the queens said Kimora Hall took the longest. She's still at home getting ready, if you ask me. But all the queens agreed that Olivia had the best chance at winning over the fans. She's done that already, hasn't she? Heidi had the best advice for the queens. She said no matter who goes home or when, they should all continue to be a sisterhood. No matter what, they went through this together and only they know how it really went down. And if they're there for each other through the drama that will wash over them after the season, they'll all be fine. It's good advice. Nina told the queens that it took until she was eliminated to realize that she was there to elevate herself and to be a better version of herself, and reminded the queens not to lose what makes them special. So why that dress? And then it was time to head back to the main stage, where it was announced that finally Candy Muse had won herself a challenge, something her drag mother, Aja, nor her drag sister, Dahlia Sin, did. So here's the Candy Muse. Well done, Candy. Seriously. As predicted, Simone and Utica were up for elimination. Second time for Simone, Third time for Utica. Both queens did a great job. Utica got into it, but Simone's attitude and confidence shone. Her facial expressions and her economy of movements kept drawing my eye. I don't think Utica did a bad job. If she was performing in a club, I definitely would have tipped her, but next to Simone, it was no surprise to me that when the music stopped, that Utica was the one to sashay away. But not before throwing a two-fisted bird at Ru, which isn't near as declarative as the one fist Ru threw at her. Seriously. So, what do you think? Did the right queen go home? What about Olivia? Should she have lip-synced? She's been in the bottom a few weeks now. Is the writing on the wall for her? What about Candy? Is this the start of a winning streak for her? And if it is it too little too late? All we can do is tune into RuPaul's Drag Race next week to see how it all plays out. And then, when you're done, you come on back and you see me so we can compare notes. Now, don't forget to like this video if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And until next week, miss me! Mwah! Seriously, Laura. So hard to watch a bad comedy act, I'm serious. I think it was the right time for Utica to go home, though. Her cracks were starting to show. I think that's what it was. God bless Simone. I don't know what it is about her. When she is performing and lip-syncing, she is untouchable. Nobody can hold a candle to her. She should be able to do that no matter what she's doing. Stand, dishes. She should be doing it like that all the time. Mind you, it sounds like cardio. I'm already exhausted. Did you notice no sirens this week? Clearly, everything that can burn has been burned.